So what is JP Fab? We build and we test for the purpose of meeting a goal. What is the goal? Sometimes it's financial, and sometimes it's, well, just so we got a tool so we can go out and explore some places and meet some new faces. It's simple as that. And a lot of my greatest build philosophy has always been to build from what I have, which gets my creative thoughts and juices flowing. So I come up with something that's just maybe really never been seen before, or it's just a different iteration that hasn't been done before. And all of that's, a lot of it's just in the name of keeping a nice, clean, simple budget. Because I don't want to blow all my money on the build and then eat macaroni and noodles when I'm on my trip enjoying it. No, that's not any fun at all. And I would like to retire someday, so I'm not going to blow all my money on my build. So, but with all that rambling said, I hope some of this does genuinely inspire you guys to kind of think outside the box yourself, see what you can build for as little as possible, yet do it as professional as possible, and honestly make sure it's safe so you don't endanger the lives of yourself, or the lives that might be in your rig and the ones around you because you cut a corner. I'll never encourage you to cut corners, by the way, but I will always encourage you to think outside the box once again and just see what you can come up with, just using the pieces of the puzzles that you have lying around. Those puzzles might be from 17 different puzzles and never meant to have been together in the first place. But if you can turn them into something that looks like it was supposed to be, like it was meant to be, like it wasn't an accident, then my friend, I would say you've succeeded in being creative, if anything, and hopefully successful. So let's get to this little truck behind me, and I'm going to answer some questions that I've gotten out in public probably time and time again. And I'm not sure why this truck gets the attention that it does and gets all the questions that it does. It is by far the least refined vehicle I have built really ever. And it just gets attention. That's all I can say about that. So let's dig into it. All right, I got to put my peeper covers on because it is just way too bright. So if you hang this up because I put my peeper covers on, I'm sorry, but I gotta see and I gotta focus. But the number one question I get is what year is that Toyota? And my answer is always 80s. 80s, they say. Then I begin the long explanation. And this comes back to that whole thinking outside the box, building something from nothing. When I got this rig, how I got this rig is I traded it for a patio. I poured a patio and I got a rig. And did it look anything like this? No, absolutely not. On paper, this thing is a 1987 Toyota 4Runner. And any of you folks that are familiar with Toyota's 4Runners, you know that they've got something back here called a passenger compartment. And as you can see, it is gone. Part number one to the 80s. It's got a title that says 1987 Toyota 4Runner. But when I bought it, the body was trashed. It was cut off right above the center of the wheel wells, and I was like, to be honest, I used it once at an event. I was so embarrassed by the appearance of this thing. I mean, it was cut, when I say cut off, and then it wasn't just cut off only and left alone. No, they had somebody had put some tube back here, and they tried bending U's, and each U wasn't quite the same, so they cut them in half, and there were kinks, and it was just like, oh, this is, I can't leave it like this. But I used it once just to make sure that I had, you know, some mechanical bones to work with. It leaked like a pig out of the, like a sieve out of the bottom of the transfer case, which I thought was seals, and I wrote that off. You'll get to see that someday in the future here with the cause of that. But this thing was a basket case from the way it was put together and the way it had been used and abused. And now I've used and abused it, and it's slowly becoming a basket case in the suspension department anyway. So what is the body? So what is the cab? What 80s is that? Oh, you want to see? Here, you can come around here. 1986, right there. So the cab is off a 1986 Toyota pickup, I think. And why do I say I think? The only time I've ever seen decals like this is when there's a camper sitting on a 1-ton Toyota chassis, two-wheel drive chassis. That's the only time I've ever seen this pattern. I can't even tell you how many Toyotas I've owned. Why have I owned tons of Toyotas? Because I used to buy them and sell them as mechanical repairables and accident, you know, and then repairables from accidents. It was just a good gig. That's what got me through school. And the net result is I became the Toyota guy, and these things sometimes just find me. So we got an 87 Toyota 4Runner frame, and that frame begins or ends at the back, and it goes all the way through the front frame horns. That is still Toyota 4Runner frame. In the back, I've chopped it off, and I built my own frame. But we'll come back to that. Then the front, and since it's a 1987, anybody that knows Toyotas will say that, will say that, well, that truck this thing doesn't have the right front end under it. As you can see under here, we got a straight axle. The straight axle came out of, I'll give them the benefit that it might not have been a 1979 Toyota pickup, which is the first year of the straight axle. So it's somewhere, came out of something between 1979 and 1985. That's all I know. When I got this thing, the truss had been welded on it. When the truss was welded on it, it bowed the axle. So when this thing's going down the road, she's looks tipped. No, it's not from jumping or anything like that. It's because it was just welded on fast, too fast. You might get to see some of that in the future when I build some axles, how that can happen and how you prevent it. So this thing has an 87 title, an 86 cab, an 87 Toyota 4Runner frame, less the IFS and less everything that it came from the factory as far as suspension goes. The front axle has genuine Bobby Long, made in America, axles in it. Today, I think they were made by a company called that's RCV today. That's what's in the front. In the front, I've got some trail gear studless hubs. Why? Because we had a hard day and a vacation shortened in Hurricane, Utah, where we blew all the studs out of this front hub, and that was a drag because one day of wheeling for a 7-day wheeling vacation that turned into a hiking vacation. Nothing wrong with that. So that's why this truck has those. It still has the IFS steering box, which has been tapped and ported right here. So we'll go around here. I'll show you what else is 1980s. Tie rod ends and steering knuckles and things. They're modern reinventions, but stock 22 RE. You know, I don't know what the duct tape is on there for, but it doesn't matter. It's got a TC type steering pump in there, which whines like a devil. And we're going to take care of that in the future. We're going to get something to remedy that. We got a max air pump, which is, it's experienced life. But that's really pretty much it. There's nothing too special. It's got a Land Cruiser brake booster from, oh shoot, guys, I might have to say 80s and 90s now, because that's brake boosters from a 94 Toyota Land Cruiser. Boy, my description of this thing is going to get long. Oh well. Got a bolt here to tighten up. So that's about it for that. You can see it's got, this thing has a genuine Warren M8000 winch, or M8, or whatever you want to call it, for you Warren aficionados. Or this is when this thing was made in the USA, because it's old enough, and it's all wired. We don't even have the wiring for that, the plug. I'm sure I could get one. We got it wired to the dash, and here it just ran off a toggle switch. Interior is nothing too special, stock interior. That is 80s. We got a piece of glass from a 1985 Toyota pickup. You'll get to see why and how that came to be. That's a new modification. So we've got 80, we'll just call it 84, 85, 86, 87 engine. And then inside this thing, or underneath this thing in the drivetrain, it has dual transfer cases. And you'll get to see that in the future too, if you want to watch and see how I put that together. For the transfer case, for the drivetrain setup, coming out of the 22RE, we've got a 5-speed. We got a transfer case with stock 228 gears in it, and then I've got another transfer case with 470 gears. All this is Toyota 4-cylinder stuff from 1985 to 1995, possibly, is where this could have came from, but most likely 80s. And that's all I got to say about that. So that's why I call it 80s, because of the drivetrain. So what else is to this rig? It's got a set of rock sliders from who knows where that I cut them loose from the frame, and I slid them up into the rocker panels. I notched out the pinch weld underneath to just tuck them up in a little higher, because every last fraction of an inch counts. Other than the 80s engine and drivetrain, it's got a wheelbase that I stretched 10 inches in the rear to push it to the total wheelbase to 118 inches, the same as the Jeep JK 4-door Wrangler. And why did I go with that length? Because I hate to admit it, but that wheelbase just flat out works. I've seen those things go places that you would never think they would ever go. So I mimicked that wheelbase, and it works. I did it by cutting the frame off and bringing her all around, or chopping it off here, and then just building a new back half out of 4x2. I think it was 11 gauge tube that I had lying around. Built these wheel arches out of drop pieces of steel. Budget once again. All this ERW tube was laying on the shelf. Used her up. Cut my gussets on my CNC table from leftover scrap. This thing is nothing but leftovers. Leftover piece of tin from a decorative sheet metal project from years ago. So this thing is leftovers. It is made up of all sorts of pieces. In some ways, it kind of looks to me like a tornado went through my shop and just slapped all this stuff here on at random. So that's part of why I also call this rig Tornator, because it just looks like it went through a tornado, because it's got dents everywhere and has a little steel and parts from this and that. What else can I tell you about it? These bead locks. Trail ready bead locks aren't cheap, but they are cheap when you get them secondhand and they come on a rig. They work, so we use them. Tires on this thing are 35, 12.5 Goodyear Wrangler MTRs with Kevlar that are wrapped around these 17-inch trail ready beadlocks, which I had mentioned earlier. Aren't cheap wheels, but they were, and so they were to me because I got this thing cheap for less than the wheels cost. The tires are well wore, just like the wheels, but they do work really well in places like Moab and Sand Hollow, despite being nearly bald. And they've been working for a while, so I'm gonna run them till they're done. The rear drive shaft was made by a drive shaft shop called Driveline Specialist in Duluth, Minnesota. The front one was made by the previous owner, and she's tough, by golly, don't you know? Look at that rubbing on there. The front drive shaft, to be honest, is the most impressive thing that was built by the previous owner, as far as I'm concerned. I've never seen one that's taken such a whooping. Transfer case cross member here, Bud built trail gear, I don't know, something like that. Rear skid plate, factory, modified for high clearance. So the front end is once again, it's an 80s Toyota front axle. It has some aftermarket parts on it. I see that the previous owner had put that Trail Gear stamped cover on here. I'm assuming he did the truss too from Trail Gear. This Trail Gear 6-stud knuckles with FJ80 tie rod ends. These front discs are from a 1980s Toyota Land Cruiser 60 series. This is pretty common stuff that you find under these mini trucks. The leaf springs are Trail Gear as well. They've seen their better days. I mean, she's got a little S curve to her. She's got a shim under it where it's not supposed to have one. She bottoms out easy. And it's just because she's well used. And she doesn't bottom out nice neither. No, not at all. She just bang, because one of the rubber stoppers is gone. That's just the way it is. The brake hoses are mounted in a fashion I'm not even going to show you guys. But don't worry, this thing doesn't go down the highway, and it's going to get some love in the future here. Oh, one last thing. It's got an 8-inch or a 6-inch throw, 1.5-inch cylinder, single-ended cylinder to throw the steering back and forth as I can give it inputs of left and right, because it doesn't turn all that easy with the front end being locked up with some sort of locker. I don't even know what it is because I've never even had the differential out. So I guess, in the words of Forrest Gump, that's all I got to say about that. All right, you guys, if you liked what you saw, hang tight. We've got some more shenanigans. We got shenanigans coming. You're going to get to see how this thing got so polished and refined like it is. And that's all I'm going to say about that for right now, because I might as well just leave you with something to ponder. But if you do like this, please smash that like button. Please subscribe so we can really get this thing rolling. Thanks for watching, guys. And adventure on, and we'll catch you later. Oh. I'm thirsty. Somebody's water bottle. It'll do. And a blanket. I will do a little camping tonight. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. It'll coming down to something. Not too bad.